In this video, we're going to be covering the class of autocannons known as the AC2, and its application in-game, particularly for the era it was designed in, that being the Succession Wars. It's important to note that the AC2 is often criticized for a multitude of reasons, and in this video we're going to cover its strengths and weaknesses before giving final judgment on it. Let us start with the AC2 as a weapon. Firstly, there is no AC2 in the Battletech universe. It's a category described for the game itself. The Vulcan, for instance, has an Armstrong autocannon, while the Blackjack has a pair of Whirlwind L autocannons. Another example is the Jägermech, which has a pair of Model D light autocannons. Each one of these represents various standards of weapons. Some of them may be 25 to 30mm cannons, rapidly firing out shells in burst mode. Others may be 45 to 60mm guns, firing more slowly with larger shells. The term AC2 just covers its weight and in-game rules for range and damage. It's important to point this out first. The AC2 class of autocannon weighs in at 6 tons and takes up 1 critical space within a battle mech. Critical spaces are the portion in each mech's compartment, such as the arms, legs, or torso. As it takes up 1 critical, and 1 critical only, it is in theory harder to destroy on a critical hit, as it only takes up 1 space, whereas its larger cousins take up more spaces. If a critical hits any of the spaces occupied by that weapon, the weapon is destroyed. When activated and firing, the AC2 will generate 1 point of heat per turn, meaning if one has 2 AC2s and fires both of them, it will generate 2 points of heat overall, which is extremely small for most mech weapons, and is only outdone by heat-neutral weapons like machine guns. Each AC2 installed on a mech or tank can fire once per turn. The reason that we refer to this type of autocannon as an AC2 is that it does 2 points of armor damage per successful hit. This, unfortunately, is tied for the lowest damage possible from a single weapon impact in the original Succession Wars, and is only higher than individual pellets from an LBX autocannon, which at the time was considered lost tech, or Star League era tech, and was not actually available during the Succession Wars. To understand the benefits of a weapon like an AC2, one has to understand range brackets and to hit rolls. In Battletech, the average Intersphere pilot has a gunnery of 4. This is the target number for them to roll on 2 6-sided dice, meaning if I roll 2 d6 and roll 4 or more, I've made a successful hit with a weapon system if there are no modifiers at all hampering my ability to hit. The modifiers to hit typically include movement, the range bracket of the weapon, and other mitigating factors like terrain or minimum ranges. To give an example of this, a mech firing an AC2 at close range suffers no penalty to hit. If the target clears 3 hexes in total movement though, it would mean the AC2 would require a 5 to hit on 2 dice. With that in mind, the AC2 has a full range of 24 hexes. It has a short range of 1 to 8 hexes and a minimum range of 4 hexes. The latter means if it shoots a target that is 4 hexes or closer, it will receive a +1 penalty to hit per unit it is within that distance. It has a medium range of 9 to 16 hexes. Anything in this bracket will be hit with a penalty of 2+. And at long ranges, which is 17 to 24, anything in this bracket will be a +4 to hit. In mech-on-mech engagements, the AC2 is most favorably viewed as a standoff weapon. It fires rounds at long range, either looking to exploit damaged units' internals or trying to get lucky shots with each round it fires. It can also be used to land easier shots at medium range versus other, harder-hitting direct-fire weapons like PPCs, large lasers, AC5s, or AC10s. It has dramatically more ammunition than all of its autocannon counterparts as well, with 45 rounds per ton. The real problem the AC2 has is that it is combat ineffective beyond lucky shots, or preying on already damaged mechs. It certainly can be effective against flying targets, forcing them to make checks, or hitting the right components. But as a whole, the AC2 essentially relies on trying to score cockpit hits, or TACs, basically forcing internal damage checks without penetrating armor. If the weapon is used in this role as a harasser at long and medium ranges, it will find it actually has difficulty hitting, especially in the circumstances of actual combat, where modifiers will routinely force the weapon to make rolls to hit of 9, 10, 11, or 12 on 2 dice. The damage it lands is almost ignorable as well, and won't be a deterrent to enemy units attempting to get closer with the unit carrying the AC2. Once the opposition closes in, significant volumes of the mech or tank's weight are typically tied up in these systems, removing their ability to defend themselves otherwise in a meaningful sense. If the duel remains at long range, an unspoken truth is that LRMs can simply do a much better job at what the AC2 does, for less tonnage per damage. Certainly, the AC2 has a 3 hex advantage over LRMs, but it weighs more than an LRM-10 and does less damage, and the LRM-10 can hit up to 2 locations per volley, making it more likely to land a head hit or to hit a critical location. Effective in limited circumstances on the tabletop, most designs which invest in the AC2 as a weapon system often find it lags on their combat ability. The Blackjack 1 invests 13 tons into AC2s, resulting in it doing a maximum of 4 damage. A Whitworth, by contrast, invests 12 tons into LRM-10s, and at almost the same range, can on average, from 1 launcher, do 6 damage, which will hit 2 locations. If both launchers hit, it will do an average of 12 damage, hitting 4 locations. For what most players will see in the game, this is sadly often a determining factor behind why many designs, such as the Jaeger mech, are considered ineffective or bad. Limited in its ability to influence the battlefield beyond relying on lucky hits or scavenging kills off other combatants, the AC2 in Battletech, the tabletop game, underserves the pilots who bring it to fight enemy mechs or most vehicles. Mechs should be taken because they are a part of a themed force, in my opinion, which is why I own 6 Blackjacks, for instance. But to claim that these mechs are not a burden in many respects against more competent machines investing their tonnage into almost anything else other than AC2s would be dishonest. The AC2 is a weapon designed to fight aircraft, a unit type which often does not appear in the tabletop game. Its value reflects that. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. There's also a YouTube member program to support this channel as well, and I appreciate the support from members immensely. With that, I will catch all of you in the comment section below.